What's going on, everyone? It's the Fantasy Football Almanac back at it with another fantasy football video. Today we are going to be talking about buy low wide receivers for the 2023 Dynasty season, the Dynasty off season. But before we get into it, if you guys could go down, give this video a like. I'm answering every single comment. So you guys have any fantasy football questions, feel free to let me know down below. And subscribe to the channel, turn that notification bell on so you don't miss another video. With that though, guys, let's hop right into it with our first player. The first guy I want to talk about is kind of a buy low option, but I think the Dynasty community is still pretty excited about this guy. I'm talking about Drake London, and I feel like nobody outside of the very, very hardcore Dynasty community is really talking about how good of a season Drake London had. I mean, 866 yards on 117 targets with arguably the worst quarterback play in the entire league. I mean, you're going between Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder. None of these guys really have any hope. Not only that, this offense is predicated on the run. We have Arthur Smith giving Tyler Algier tons of carries, Cordarrelle Patterson tons of carries, even Caleb Huntley mixing in as well. This is not a pass-first offense, and that's the unfortunate thing about Drake London. I think it will tend to stay that way because I don't think Arthur Smith is getting fired anytime soon. He actually led the Falcons to a somewhat decent season, in my opinion, and I think with the right pieces, they can actually potentially make a playoff push just because the division itself is so bad. But in my opinion, this is a talent buy over a situation buy. I think long-term Drake London has the talent to take over as a top 10 NFL wide receiver. Currently, he is only 21 years old, a full year younger than Garrett Wilson, despite being in the same draft class. And aside from Kyle Pitts, there is no target competition, and I do not think they're going to bring in any target competition anytime soon. There is potential, very sneaky potential, that I think they're going to bring in a quarterback this year. They do bring in Taylor Heineke, so, a little bit of a sticky situation. Heineke is at least a decent quarterback, but is Heineke really going to stop you from potentially bringing in Lamar Jackson? Is Heineke really going to stop you from potentially drafting someone at 8 that you really like? Honestly, I don't think so. I think he is a stopgap guy at best, maybe a decent quarterback. I mean, he looked okay for the Commanders. But in the end, this guy is a backup quarterback who is starting as a bridge quarterback at best, so I don't think that's stopping. So I think Drake London long-term has phenomenal prospects. Well, he is going to cost a pretty penny because most people who drafted him probably drafted him with the 102, the 103, the 104, maybe the 105 in your rookie drafts. But I think you could probably package the 109 and the 201 to go out and get Drake London simply because, to a layman's perspective, he really didn't have that great of a season. His underlying metrics, though, were pretty good. I mean, he did have 30% of the team's target share, which is a fantastic sign for a wide receiver. In my opinion, targets are an earned metric. That proves he went out and earned them. 2.16 yards per route run in an offense that is built the way it is, I think is great. I mean, it ranks him as the 25th best wide receiver as a rookie who was 20 for part of the season. Yeah, that is a great metric. Drake London, buy low to me. I think he's an absolutely phenomenal player. Hopefully the situation looks up for him. I really hope it does because that is the biggest knock on Drake London, but I think he will be a phenomenal wide receiver at the NFL level. Moving on, though, I got another rookie turning year 2 wide receiver, Jahan Dotson. I think Jahan Dotson looked pretty good his rookie year. I mean, the first part of this analysis is more of an eye test than it is anything else, but Jahan Dotson passed the eye test with flying colors. I think he looked really good as a wide receiver. And in 10 games started last season, put up 523 yards. That's about 50 yards a game, which is fine for a wide receiver that is in his rookie year. What more can you expect from a guy who only started 10 games? He does have the draft capital as well. The Commanders drafted him 16th overall, so he has the draft capital. Furthermore, he gets Jacoby Brissett, who I hate to say it is probably better than Heineke, but I mean, not by much. It's flip a coin, heads or tails. But Jacoby Brissett was able to support fantasy wide receivers. I mean, we saw Amari Cooper have a top 10 wide receiver season under his tutelage, and also Donovan Peoples-Jones was a sneaky sleeper for most of the season. Nothing crazy, but good enough. We could also see the Commanders bring in another quarterback as well. I mean, they are a team that is a very massive candidate to bring in a quarterback, potentially like Lamar. Again, Jacoby Brissett, like Heineke, is not the type of guy that's going to stop you from bringing in a great quarterback, in my opinion. The next wide receiver I want to talk about is Chris Godwin. And Chris Godwin, one of the most talented wide receivers in the entire league consistently, year in and year out. Finishing as a wide receiver you can trust in PPR, standard scoring, what have you. Chris Godwin, a great wide receiver, and has a phenomenal ceiling. Finishes the wide receiver 2 in a Jameis Winston-led offense. In 2019, despite only playing 14 games, which is mind-boggling to me, he has regressed since then, finishing around the wide receiver 20 on a year-in, year-out basis. But, I mean, a lot of it has been dealing with injuries, playing 12, 14, and 15 games over the last 3 seasons. And considering the fact that he was coming off a torn ACL this most recent season and still finished with 142 targets and over 1,000 yards is mind-boggling to me. Yes, the situation is not going to be great. We have Baker Mayfield coming in. But Chris Godwin is another bet on talent where I think Chris Godwin is a great wide receiver at the NFL level. And although Baker Mayfield is going to be the quarterback and Baker Mayfield is not a good quarterback, we do have Mike Evans getting a year older. He will be 30 this NFL season, whereas Chris Godwin still probably has 2 or 3 very productive years at the NFL level left, 27 years old. And this is probably the lowest you're ever going to be able to get Chris Godwin. I mean, realistically, we're talking about a player who has the ceiling to finish as the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football, a ceiling that very few wide receivers can claim to have. And I don't think he would cost a first-round pick, and he's still just 27 years old. And I'm fine taking a shot like that on a guy like Chris Godwin, because as we know, situations change extremely quickly. I mean, we saw Chris Godwin start with Jameis Winston, then gets Tom Brady, and now has Baker Mayfield. Situation can change just like that. Chris Godwin could be traded tomorrow, although I don't think he will, quite honestly. I mean, if the Bucs do elect to rebuild and tear this thing down, it is possible that Chris Godwin gets traded. And this is somebody who, again, can finish as the wide receiver 1 for your offense. I love Chris Godwin here. I think he's good buy low, especially if you're a contending roster. Great depth to have and a great flex spot if you need him in a pinch. The next guy I want to talk about is Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore was getting a lot of hate this most recent season, and a lot of people forgot just how good he was when he broke out his freshman season in the NFL. I mean, this is someone who was the wide receiver 4 from week 7 to 13 when he finally had his breakout in his freshman season, and that was with Zach Wilson, a quarterback. Now he goes from Zach Wilson to Deshaun Watson. And I am a little bit concerned with Deshaun Watson, but I feel like at the end of next year, we're going to be looking back and saying, how were we this stupid? Of course, Deshaun Watson is going to be great again. I mean, this is somebody who had 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, led the league in passing in a season, a perennial top 5 quarterback, both in fantasy and in the regular NFL. And this is somebody who literally just turned 23. As I'm making this video, he turned 23 2 days ago. Very, very young wide receiver in a great offense, in an offense that could be potentially great for years to come. I think Elijah Moore, one of the most undervalued players right now in fantasy, because at least now there is hope that he's going to be a great wide receiver. This is somebody who's going in the late first, early second in dynasty drafts, and I don't think he will cost a first round pick. Heck, I don't even know if he will cost an early second round pick. I feel like you can get Elijah Moore for a third and maybe a late second. I think that is phenomenal value. So while I do think Elijah Moore is a risky pick, he is just 23 years old. He's not going to cost you much, and he's going to be on potentially one of the best offenses in the NFL with a great offensive line, a great run game with Nick Chubb, and an offense where he doesn't even have to be the wide receiver 1 because Amari Cooper is there for another year or 2. But once Amari Cooper ages out, Elijah Moore could easily be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I think he's a good short-term buy. I think he's a good long-term buy. Well, he is risky. The risk is indeed worth it with Elijah Moore. I'm actually going to go, as soon as this video ends, hit up my league mate for some Elijah Moore trades. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it from me. 4 buy low dynasty wide receivers you can go out and get in your leagues right now. If you did enjoy, give this video a like. I'm answering every single comment. If you guys have any questions, let me know down below. And subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on so you don't miss another video. With that, though, guys, as always, have a good day, a good night, and a good life.